Have you ever wondered why some people attract success like magnets, while others seem to struggle no matter how hard they try? What if the secret isn't what they do, but who they believe they are? Let me tell you a story. Not just any story, but a lesson that could shift the course of your life. It starts with a young man named Daniel, standing in the middle of a small town diner, with a mop in one hand and a big dream in his heart. Daniel was 25. He worked nights at Mel's Diner, sweeping floors and washing dishes. Most people saw him as just a helper. But Daniel didn't see himself that way. While others around him laughed off dreams, Daniel was quietly building a different future, starting with his mind. Every morning before his shift, Daniel did something unusual. He'd walk down Main Street, shoulders back, chest up, head held high. He wore his only clean shirt tucked neatly into his pants. He'd nod to the bank manager, speak confidently to the bookstore owner, and wave to the mayor like he was one of them. And here's the thing, he believed he already was. While mopping the diner floor, Daniel imagined owning a chain of restaurants. When he poured coffee, he practiced greeting future investors. Every action, every word, every thought was guided by a powerful truth. I must become the person who has my dream, before the dream can become mine. He didn't call it this at the time, but Daniel was practicing what Napoleon Hill called mental rehearsal. He was acting as if his dream had already come true. And that, my friend, is one of the greatest success secrets ever known. You see, long before Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, he saw it first, in his mind. He imagined the finish line, the cheers, the clock reading 3:59. He didn't hope. He rehearsed. Over and over again. Until his body caught up with his belief. Daniel did the same thing, only with business. Most people wait to feel confident until they succeed. Daniel chose to feel confident first, because he knew success would follow. Why does this work? Because your brain, your subconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. It believes whatever you tell it, especially if you repeat it with emotion and belief. Napoleon Hill taught that thoughts are things. They're powerful. They shape your actions, your habits, and eventually your reality. If you want to change your life, you must start by changing your thinking. Daniel believed this deeply. Each day before work, he sat quietly and imagined his future in detail. He saw his name on a restaurant sign. He pictured the staff in uniforms. He even imagined the music playing in the background and the smell of fresh coffee in the air. He didn't just see it, he felt it. Joy, pride, gratitude. That's the secret. You must bring your emotions into your vision. Here's what you must understand. Your future doesn't begin when you get the dream job, or the perfect partner, or $1 million idea. It begins the moment you start thinking, speaking, and acting like the person who already has it. This is the beginning of an identity shift, a powerful inner transformation where you stop trying and start being. But here's the catch. If you keep doubting yourself, your brain will find ways to prove you right. It'll show you failure, rejection, and closed doors. That's how the brain works. It looks for evidence to match what you believe. But if you believe you are successful, even when you're mopping floors, your brain will look for new doors to open. And when one door opens, another follows. That's how momentum begins. Daniel had no fancy degree. No rich uncle. No startup money. What he did have was a mindset. A winning mindset built on vision, belief, and repetition. One morning, while wiping down tables, Daniel was approached by a regular customer, Mr. Harris, a retired businessman who always sat at booth 4. "Young man," Mr. Harris said, "I've been watching you. There's something different about you." Daniel smiled. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "No," Mr. Harris said, leaning in. "You carry yourself like someone with a purpose. That's rare. What are you working toward?" Daniel hesitated. Most people laughed when he told them, but not this time. "I'm going to open my own restaurant," he said. "Maybe several." Mr. Harris leaned back, smiled, and said the words that would change Daniel's life. "Well, I may know a few people who could help. Let me be clear. That moment didn't happen by accident. It happened because Daniel was already living in his future. Long before it showed up. He wasn't pretending. He was becoming. And so can you. This is how success begins, not with luck or timing, but with an identity decision. A decision to be the person who has already achieved the dream. Walk like them. Speak like them. Think like them. You're not waiting for success. Success is waiting for you to step into who you were meant to be. At the end of this 6-part journey, you'll learn how to master mental rehearsal, the law of attraction, the power of words, the role of identity, real-life application strategies, and the final secret that brings it all together. But before we move forward, I leave you with a question. Who are you becoming today? Not next year. Not when you hit your goals. Today. Because the person you choose to be today determines the life you'll live tomorrow. End of part 1. Would you like me to continue with part 2? Title: Be Before You Become. Part 2. The Decision That Changes Everything. Daniel woke up before the sun. The sky outside his small apartment was still dark, the world quiet. But inside something stirred, a sense of purpose deeper than coffee and clocks. Today wasn't about checking tasks off a list. Today was about identity. He stood in front of the mirror, his reflection tired but focused. No expensive suit. No fancy car in the driveway. But Daniel saw someone else standing there, someone no one else could see just yet. A business owner. A leader. A man of discipline, drive, and direction. He took out a notebook and began writing, not about his current situation, but about the man he was becoming. I am decisive. I trust my judgment. I act quickly when opportunity knocks. I use my time and money wisely, like someone building an empire. When I face a tough choice, I ask, what would future me do? Then I do it. It wasn't a fantasy. It was a decision. Daniel had learned something powerful, that our current identity isn't a fixed truth. It's a story we've been told and retold through years of fear, doubt, and limitation. Most people live inside that old story like it's a prison cell. But Daniel was building a new one. He didn't pretend to be someone he wasn't. He decided to become the person he was always meant to be, underneath all the layers of insecurity and past failures. It began with how he spoke. He stopped saying, I'm trying. He stopped hoping things would change. Instead, he said, I'm building. I've decided. It's happening. That small shift changed everything. But then came the fear of failing. That old, familiar voice returned, whispering things like, what if this doesn't work? What if you lose everything? What if you're not good enough? And for a moment, Daniel felt the grip of doubt tighten. But he paused, and remembered a lesson from a story his father once told him. It was about Abraham Lincoln. Daniel didn't know all the details back then. Just that Lincoln had failed again and again. Bankruptcies, heartbreak, public humiliation, and 8 failed elections. But what stuck with Daniel wasn't the list of losses. It was how Lincoln carried himself during all of it. He still walked tall. He still spoke like a leader. He still believed the vision. He acted like a president before anyone called him one. Daniel whispered, and that hit hard. You don't succeed because you've never failed. You succeed because failure can't stop you from becoming. The next time Daniel faced a difficult choice, investing in a small food truck rental for weekend markets, he didn't hesitate. It wasn't a guaranteed win. In fact, it might have been a little reckless for someone making $12 an hour. But he asked himself, what would the future version of me do? Not the dishwasher, not the dreamer, but the restaurant owner, the successful man already living the life. And that version of Daniel said, you don't grow by playing safe. You grow by moving forward. So he moved. He stopped using timid language. And no more. I hope this works. I'll try. Now it was. This is the plan. This is who I am. At first, it felt uncomfortable. He wasn't used to speaking that way. But slowly, his brain began to adjust. The fear didn't disappear, it just got quieter. Every time he said, I will, he built a new belief. And belief is the bridge between who you are now and who you're becoming. Daniel also started noticing something strange. Obstacles didn't stop him like they used to. A permit delay? Just a temporary detour. A weekend of low sales? A lesson, not a loss. An unexpected bill? Training in resourcefulness. Because now, his success wasn't a maybe. It was a matter of when. He saw failure differently. He didn't take it personally. It wasn't the end. It was part of the path. And every no just pointed him closer to the yes meant for him. One night, sitting at his tiny kitchen table, Daniel had an idea. He remembered how Vince Lombardi had turned the worst team in football into champions. Not with flashy plays, but with simple, powerful rituals. Daniel realized success wasn't about dramatic leaps. It was about small, consistent habits that aligned with his new identity. So he created his own championship rituals. He dressed one level above his current job, as if he was already managing a business, not just washing dishes. He arrived 10 minutes early to every commitment. No matter how small. He cleaned and organized his workspace as if it were the back office of his future company. He read one chapter a day from books on leadership, finance, and marketing. He spoke to himself with respect. No more sarcasm, no more self-doubt. These habits didn't just make him look more successful. They made him feel different. They rewired his brain to expect more, reach higher, and move faster. The transformation wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, internal, steady, but it was real. The people around him noticed. Mel, the diner owner, asked, "You going somewhere, Daniel?" Daniel smiled. "Already on my way." And he was, not because he had all the answers, but because he finally understood the question. Who would I be if I'd already achieved my dream? And more importantly, how do I start living like that person, today? End of part 2. Would you like me to continue with part 3? Title: Be Before You Become. Part 3, Becoming the Man Before the World believes that. It was a Wednesday night, and Daniel was exhausted. He had just finished a double shift at the diner, cleaned the last booth, and counted tips that barely paid for groceries. Yet, instead of crashing on the couch, he sat down at his small desk by the window with a notebook, a pen, and a single question in his mind. Who did I become today? Not, what did I do? Not, how much money did I make? But, who was I becoming? He flipped open his notebook and began to write. Today, I didn't complain when my coworker was late. I led. Today, I chose to save $10 instead of buying snacks I didn't need. I invested. Today, I spoke confidently to a supplier about a future deal. I moved with purpose. He didn't call this a journal. It was his identity log. A record of who he was becoming, someone the world hadn't met yet, but someone he already knew. Daniel had learned something powerful. Success isn't created by massive heroic acts once a year. It's built in the tiny, consistent choices made every single day, especially when nobody's watching. He had started a new ritual. Before bed, he reflected not just on tasks, but on alignment. Was he thinking like the person he wanted to be? Was he speaking, moving, and choosing like his future self? It felt awkward at first. Honestly, it felt fake. Sometimes, when he visualized owning a business, part of him laughed inside. You're still scrubbing syrup off tables, remember? But Daniel understood something most people don't. That discomfort? That awkwardness? That's growth. He was moving beyond his current identity. He wasn't pretending. He was transforming. That week, he made another bold decision. He cut his TV time in half. Not because he didn't enjoy relaxing, but because he started to ask himself a new question. Would the man I'm becoming spend hours watching shows, or feeding his mind? So instead of mindlessly scrolling or binging, he started listening to podcasts, interviews with entrepreneurs, business leaders, motivational thinkers. At first, he didn't understand everything. But over time, his thinking changed. He wasn't just listening, he was training, feeding his brain a higher level of conversation. Now when problems came up at the diner, short supplies, scheduling issues, customer complaints, Daniel handled them differently. He was thinking bigger. He stopped seeing these moments as nuisances and started seeing them as leadership practice. Because that's what his future self would do. And his language? That was changing too. Gone were the phrases like, "I hope it works out. I'll try my best. We'll see what happens." Now, he caught himself and corrected immediately. "I will figure this out. I am building something great. This is happening." It felt strange at first, like wearing shoes a size too big, but he kept going. Because he knew that muscles only grow when stretched. And that included the muscles of his mind. He remembered reading about Winston Churchill, how he spoke during Britain's darkest hour, not with fear, but fear's certainty. "We shall fight. We shall never surrender." Daniel thought, if Churchill could speak with that level of conviction while bombs fell over London, I can speak boldly about my dreams while building them from scratch. So he began auditing his own speech. Whenever he caught himself using soft, uncertain words, maybe, if, hopefully, he paused. Then rewrote the sentence out loud. Not as a correction, but as a command to his subconscious. It wasn't just about words. It was about reprogramming his identity. But change isn't easy. Some of his old friends didn't get it. "Why are you talking like that, man? You're acting like some CEO now? Relax, bro. You're just a busba." It hurt. But Daniel didn't get angry. He remembered something he once heard. "You don't get to take everyone with you. Some people are part of your history, not your destiny." So he started creating distance, not with hate, but with intention. Instead of long nights hanging out with people who made him feel small, he began attending free business workshops at the community center. He reached out to local entrepreneurs. Even messaged a few on social media just to ask questions. Most ignored him. One replied, and that one became his first mentor. His environment changed. 2. He reorganized his tiny apartment. Threw away clutter. Cleaned his closet. Set up a small desk with only 2 things, a notepad and a vision board. He put pictures of food trucks, smiling customers, restaurant layouts, quotes from successful leaders. All things that reminded him who he was becoming. He even changed how he dressed. Nothing expensive. Just intentional. Pressed shirts. Clean shoes. Looking in the mirror, he didn't see a diner helper anymore. He saw a man preparing for something bigger, and something magical started happening. The world began responding differently. People greeted him with more respect. Strangers started asking for advice. Opportunities began showing up, small ones, but real. Because Daniel had already made the shift, on the inside. He remembered a story he'd read about Andrew Carnegie. How Carnegie, even before becoming the richest man in America, began surrounding himself with people smarter than him, engineers, bankers, inventors. He didn't wait until he was successful to build that environment. He built the environment to become successful. So Daniel did the same. He upgraded his circle, slowly, deliberately. He joined a small mastermind group online. He followed business mentors on YouTube. He listened, took notes, asked questions. He wasn't the smartest in the room anymore, and that was exactly where he wanted to be. Then came the biggest shift of all: action. Real, physical action rooted in his new identity. Daniel wrote down, "What does my future self do every day?" He listed out habits: wakes up early, talks to new customers, studies 1 hour a day, saves a portion of every tip, eats healthy, follows up with suppliers, takes risks with courage. Then he asked himself, why wait? So he stopped waiting. He reached out to a local food market and offered to rent a tiny corner space on Saturdays. No kitchen. Just a cooler, sandwich trays, and paper menus. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He acted from certainty. And that certainty spread. Customers came. One even asked if he catered. That night, Daniel looked at his notebook. The same question sat at the top of the page. Who did I become today? He smiled. I became the kind of man who no longer wonders if it will happen. I became the kind of man who makes it happen. End of part 3. Would you like me to continue with part 4? Title: Be Before You Become. Part 4. Faith Without Proof. Action Without Applause. It was still dark when Daniel woke up. The city outside was quiet. Only the hum of streetlights and the occasional bark of a dog. His alarm hadn't even rung yet, but something else had. Purpose. He swung his feet to the floor and whispered to himself. The man I'm becoming doesn't wait to be told. He leads himself. It wasn't a line from a book. It was his own truth now, and truth doesn't need permission. That morning, Daniel packed his cooler with homemade sandwiches and fresh lemonade. He had borrowed a folding table from his neighbor, printed a basic menu at the library, and taped it to a cardboard sign. No fancy branding. No paid ads, just belief. And lunch. He arrived at the local Saturday market and set up his small table between a flower stall and a woman selling handmade soaps. He smiled at everyone, offered samples, and repeated the same simple phrase over and over. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm building a food business from scratch. Want a taste? Some ignored him. Others looked skeptical. But by noon, he had sold out, not because he had the best food in town, but because he showed up like someone who believed he did. That's when Daniel learned another principle of success. You must act with faith before the world gives you feedback. Most people wait for signs, a lucky break. A round of applause. A friend who believes in them. But Daniel understood, that's not how it works. The world mirrors you. If you act small, unsure, hesitant, the world treats you that way. But if you walk with conviction, speak with vision, and move like it's already happening, people respond. That week, something unexpected happened. A man named Carl, who ran a local catering business, stopped by Daniel's stand. He tasted the chicken sandwich, nodded slowly, and said, You got something here. He offered Daniel a part-time gig helping with weekend events. It wasn't a huge opportunity. But it was real, and more importantly, it was earned. Because Daniel had chosen to act when no one was watching. To sell food before he had a full kitchen. To become a business owner before he had a business card. At night, when Daniel got home, he opened his notebook again. He no longer asked, When will I succeed? Now, he asked, What did I do today that matched the man I'm becoming? He logged things like, woke up without the alarm, gave free samples with a smile, asked for feedback without fear, invested $5 from tips into supplies, said no to an invitation that didn't align with his goals. This daily tracking wasn't about guilt or perfection. It was about alignment. Because if your actions don't match your ambitions, your goals are just wishes. One rainy evening, while walking home soaked in water but filled with fire, Daniel remembered a quote he had written on his wall. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Martin Luther King Jr. That's what Daniel was doing. He didn't have all the answers. He didn't know when the breakthrough would come. But he kept stepping. He kept climbing. And with each step, the next one revealed itself. But not everyone cheered. One friend messaged him. Why are you trying so hard? You're not going to make it big. Just get a real job. Daniel read it, paused, then smiled. Because he knew they weren't talking to him. They were talking to themselves. They were trapped in their own fear, their own past, their own limits. Daniel had left that place. He wasn't angry. He just moved on. You see, there's a strange thing about growing. You lose people. Not because you outgrow them, but because they choose to stay the same. That month, Daniel reinvested all his profits. He bought better ingredients, improved his packaging, upgraded from a folding table to a portable food cart. He still wasn't making big money, but he was building momentum. And momentum is everything. It's invisible. But once it starts, it becomes unstoppable. Daniel realized that success is like pushing a heavy train. At first, it doesn't budge. You push, and nothing moves. But suddenly, 1 inch, then 2, then 3 feet, and soon it's rolling on its own. He was getting closer to that moment, and he felt it in his bones. Then came the day that changed everything. A woman approached his cart during the Sunday market. She wore a clean blazer, carried a leather notebook, and had a confident smile. Hi, she said. I manage food vendors for a summer festival. We had a cancellation. Your booth looks clean. You have good energy. Want to fill in next weekend? Daniel's heart raced. Yes, he replied calmly. Send me the details. That night he didn't sleep. Not from fear, but from fire. He realized this wasn't luck, this wasn't random. This was what happens when you act like it's already yours. He wrote in his journal that night. Today, I acted as if I already belonged there. And now, I do. Because when you walk like you're supposed to be in the room makes space for you. Daniel wasn't pretending anymore. He had become the man he used to only imagine, not because of applause, not because of validation, but because of alignment. The world still didn't fully know his name, but that was fine, because the man he had become didn't need the world's approval to keep moving. End of part 4. Would you like me to continue with part 5? Title: Be Before You Become. Part 5. One small win, one giant shift. Daniel stood behind his food cart at the summer festival. Bright flags waved above him. The air was filled with music, children's laughter, and the smell of fried dough and sizzling meats. His booth was modest, just a small menu, a clean layout, and a handwritten sign that read, "Fresh. Real. Made with hustle." He wasn't the most experienced. He didn't have a fancy setup, but he had something others didn't. The belief that every person who stopped by was one step closer to his dream. And belief, when paired with preparation, becomes unstoppable. That day, Daniel sold more than he ever had. People lined up. Someone asked if he took Venmo. He didn't. Yet.by the next customer, he did. He downloaded the app on the spot and said, "Try now." That's another secret of successful people. They adapt fast. They don't wait to be perfect. They get in motion, then improve. At the end of the day, sweaty and exhausted, Daniel sat on the curb counting cash. A teenage boy walked by, stopped, and said, "Hey, I've seen you online. Your sandwiches are fire, man." Daniel blinked. He hadn't posted much. Just a few videos. But people were noticing. Branding, Daniel wrote later that night, is not your logo. It's how people feel after they meet you. The next morning, Daniel walked to the community center. They had posted a flyer. Free business startup class, 6 weeks. Only 6 people showed up. But Daniel sat in the front row. He asked questions. Took notes. Introduced himself to the instructor afterward. That's where he learned about LLCs, food safety laws, and local grants. That same week, he registered his business legally, got a proper license, applied for a vendor grant. Because once the door cracks open, you kick it wider. Now, here's something no one talks about. Success doesn't feel like fireworks and confetti. It feels like grocery receipts that finally balance. Getting home and realizing you didn't doubt yourself once today. Someone asking, "How did you start?" And realizing you're now a step ahead of someone else. And that's what happened to Daniel. One evening, a young woman came to his cart, nervous and shy. "I follow you," she said quietly. "You inspire me. I'm trying to start a jewelry business, but I don't even know where to begin." Daniel didn't pause. He stepped aside and pointed to the front of his cart. "Start here," he said. "Talk to people. Show your product. Believe in yourself before anyone else does." She laughed nervously. "Seriously?" "Dead serious." She didn't sell anything that day, but she stood. She showed up, just like Daniel had. And that's when he realized, your first win isn't the money, it's becoming someone worth following. Back home, Daniel looked in the mirror. Same face. Same clothes. But everything had changed. Because the man staring back wasn't waiting for motivation anymore. He was creating it. He no longer said, "I hope I make it. Maybe one day. If only someone gave me a chance." Now he said, "I make my own chances. I'm already becoming. Watch me build." That month, Daniel received an email. His grant application had been approved. $5,000 to help expand his mobile food business. He laughed. Not out of surprise, but from deep, quiet pride. Not because of the money, but because it proved what he already knew. The universe meets you halfway, but only after you start walking. He bought a better cart, hired a part-time helper, ordered branded containers and shirts with his new slogan. Start small. Serve big. But none of it changed who he was. Daniel wasn't chasing recognition. He was building alignment. He didn't need a crowd to feel confident anymore, because confidence was now his default state. One night, while journaling under the dim light of his living room, Daniel wrote, "I'm not running towards success. I'm walking in it, every single day. Because success isn't an event. It's a state of being." And Daniel had finally crossed the line between trying to become someone and simply being him. End of part 5. Would you like part 6, the final part? Title: Be Before You Become. Part 6. The final step is never final. It was a chilly autumn morning. Daniel stood before a small crowd outside a new brick-and-mortar spot. Not a food truck, not a cart. An actual storefront, with his name on it. Hustle and serve, real food. Real story. He held the scissors in shaking hands. His mother stood beside him. His old mentor from the community center waved from the back. Kids from the neighborhood, now teens, cheered like it was a concert. He cut the ribbon. And just like that, what once was a dream became a doorway. The journey to this moment wasn't perfect. There were weeks he barely made rent. There were cold days when no one showed up to his cart. There were partnerships that failed, and customers that complained. But Daniel had learned something powerful. Winners don't wait for everything to go right. They learn to move even when things go wrong. One night, sitting in his now busy shop, Daniel spoke to a small group of young entrepreneurs. They leaned in as he told his story, not just the wins, but the losses. "I thought success was something far away," he said. "But it's not. It's right here." He tapped his chest. "In how you think, how you show up, and how you keep going when no one claps." He paused. "People talk about $1,000,000 ideas. I didn't have one. I had a $10 idea. But I gave it $1,000,000 effort. That's the secret no one tells you. You won't feel ready. You won't feel qualified. And no one will hand you the roadmap. But you don't need a perfect plan. You need courage, consistency, and belief. And if you start with those, the rest follows." Daniel's story didn't end with a big check. It didn't need to. Because true success is not the final destination. It's living with purpose, every day. It's waking up and knowing you control your story. You've beaten the odds others used as excuses. You are living proof that mindset beats background. So here's the truth: you don't need a degree to start. You don't need money to begin. You don't need permission to believe. You just need to decide. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Because someone out there is waiting for your story. Not your perfect product. Not your polished pitch. They're waiting to see if you are real. If you dared to do it. If you started scared, but still started. And when you do, remember Daniel, the man who went from empty pockets to full purpose, not because he got lucky, but because he got up, and kept getting up, until the world couldn't ignore him anymore. Now it's your turn. Yes, you. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Because the only difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do next. Call to action. If Daniel's journey inspired you, take that first step today. Like, share, and comment your dreams below. Let's build a community of doers, not just dreamers. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that move you forward. End of part 6. Final part.